Hello, I'm Ali Langdon. Welcome to A Current Affair. Roxy Tickle was born a man, but now identifies as a woman. But when Roxy joined the female-only app, Giggle for Girls, she got barred. It raised the question, what's it mean to be female?
Can you think of any laws that give government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm happy to answer a more specific question. But
Male versus female.
there are medical procedures.
Okay. That the government has the power to make a decision about a man's body?
I thought you were asking about medical procedures
No,
that are unique to men.
I'll repeat the question. Can you think of any laws that give the government the power to make decisions about the male body?
I'm not thinking of any right now, Senator.
Grover, you've just been found guilty of indirect discrimination against a woman. How do you feel?
I will say, in my view, I've not been found guilty of indirect discrimination against a woman because the whole crux of the case was that I don't acknowledge that this male person, adult human male, is a woman.
Law changes made a decade ago made this decision possible today. So are you saying there is something wrong with the current law?
Without a doubt. Like, if any man claiming to be a woman was actually a woman, their rights would have actually existed under the Sex Discrimination Act how it was before the amendments. It had to be amended so that men could be included as women into it.
Why did the app kick Roxy Tickle out in the first place?
I, at some point, would have seen a picture of a male and gone, that's a male. That's all.
And here we are today.
And here we are today.
Inclusion is typically presented as an unambiguous positive. However, over the past few years, it's been used to allow the oppressor class to shed the title and resulting judgment of perceived or actualized privilege. In a victim economy, this offers additional power, as an attempt to address systemic inequalities by giving attention and positions of influence to those who have historically been disenfranchised has become common in academia and government, as well as in social groups. But in order to maintain a space, selectivity or exclusion is necessary. Everyone needs to be included in governmental representation and voting, and requires access to public goods and services, education, health services, as well as general human decency and respect. Because humans do not give up biases or always act rationally, this often requires the use of laws to prevent discrimination, as well as to address differences such as due to sex or ability. But no one is obligated to provide you with friends, social groups, or sex partners. Often, the concept that one can force entry into these groups is supported by a belief that human company and intimacy can be forced or bought. In the case of social groups, the need for human interaction is presented as a burden that must be filled. Within the victim economy, inclusion is mandatory. Lesbians thus must include anyone who claims to be a lesbian, not just in social spaces like clubs or bars, but in their bedrooms as well.
I love that when I say that cis people in the gay community are really fucking transphobic, cis gay people respond by being really fucking transphobic, and then call me homophobic for calling them transphobic. And what's really fun is that I won't be talking about genitals at all, and half of the time you'll find a way to bring it up. Stop saying that you're oppressed for having to exist in a space with trans people next to you. And it's so weird because you experience oppression based on your sexuality, and you have zero empathy for trans people. The cognitive dissonance and lack of critical thinking skills truly is astounding.
Even before transitioning became widely accepted as it is today, lesbian women were aware of the desire men held to intrude in women's spaces. At the 1973 West Coast Lesbian Conference, Robin Morgan promised, "I will not call a male she. 32 years of suffering in this androcentric society, and of surviving, have earned me the title woman. One walk down the street by a male transvestite, 5 minutes of his being hassled, which he may enjoy. And then he dares to think he understands our pain? No, in our mother's names and in our own, we must not call him sister." Today, women of all backgrounds are being asked to do exactly that. Where still, we are being told to cede our right to control who we interact with, befriend, date, use for medical care, or otherwise spend time with. It's an obligation, they tell us. You have to be inclusive. It's interesting how other movements don't, or at least are not successful at, provoking others into including them in private spaces. There remains a respect for what is known as the right of association. However, in several countries, most notably and recently in Australia, this right has been infringed upon by forcing women to spend time with and include unwanted males in private spaces and groups.
This man is suing a female-only social media platform for alleged discrimination. I'm so exhausted by these men! Giggle is a platform designed for women founded by Sal Grover, which has sent many entitled males into a frenzy because apparently access to a vast variety of social media platforms isn't good enough for them. And this is all because this man thinks he is a woman. And his delusion is affirmed by a very loud group of people who insist that we refer to him as a woman out of respect. Ironically, they have no respect for actual women. Not a single ounce of respect for our single-sex spaces, our sports, our privacy and dignity, or our safety. I'm gonna say it. Men's rights movement. Most of the discourse surrounding this is happening on Twitter, so if you're interested in hearing more, Twitter. And don't forget to send love to Sal, because she is the best.
As reported by The Guardian, the Sex Discrimination Act, which was created in 1984, was amended in 2013 to make it unlawful to discriminate against a person on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or intersex status. However, the Act does not include a definition of man, woman, or sex. This lack of definition has also been exploited in the American legal system, as there was no need to define sex when there was no debate over the topic, because the existence of male and female as separate and immutable categories was obvious. However, in the case of Tickle v. Giggle, the judge found sex is changeable and also went a step further, finding that how a person identifies and is recognized socially is enough to access gender identity protections. It's as broad an interpretation as the judge could have made, and that's why it's really significant. It's really beneficial for coverage against discrimination for the trans community, says Maria Noaz, General Counsel for the Grata Fund, which supported Tickle. The judge has recognized the law and norms in society have developed. Trans women are women and should have access to services on the same basis as all women, based on their self-identification. Additionally, in October, the Australian Human Rights Commission found it was impossible to tell who was born female and who is not without intrusion on individuals' privacy, bodily integrity, and dignity. Of course, not only are these rulings idiotic and inaccurate, as humans are a sexually dimorphic species, and even with hormone surgeries and other appearance-changing articles, it's very possible to tell if a person is male or female visually.
This case and the unlawful and discriminatory exclusion from the Giggle app has stolen the last 3 years of my life. I've been targeted by hateful and online commentary and degrading merchandise designed to ridicule and mock me. There is so much hate and bile cast on trans and gender diverse people simply because of who we are. Sometimes it's difficult to remember that not all people are like that. When I walked into the courtroom for the hearing in April, I felt safe because I was treated with courtesy and respect and allowed to tell my story. I'm pleased by the outcome of my case, and I hope it is healing for trans and gender diverse people. The ruling shows that all women are protected from discrimination. I brought my case to show trans people that you can be brave and that you can stand up for yourself.
If official forms are not allowed to be changed to reflect the person's desired status, for example, changing sex markers, then it would be easy to ascertain a person's sex based on their ID card and observed sex at birth. However, because of these rulings, it is now impossible for women to enjoy the freedom of association, which is one of the most basic rights enjoyed by humans. It ensures that every individual is free to organize and to form and participate in groups, either formally or informally. As noted in the entry for freedom of association in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. Some of our associations are voluntary, such as typical friendship. Others are non-voluntary, such as the childhood family or institutional environment in which we are born and raised. Some of our associations offer lasting connections with specific people, such as, usually, our parents, children, spouses, and colleagues. Others are looser affiliations of people we may not know directly, based on common identity, history, or ambition, such as a national club, a student union, the Republican base, or the American people. Some of these latter affiliations stretch the notion of an association into a metaphor, but they highlight that associations are defined by people sharing a common purpose. That common purpose is sometimes the association itself. Many of our intimate associations exist for their own sake, that is, for the sake of associating with one another. Other times, the common purpose is a further independent goal, such as financial success, worship, recreation, achievement, joint self-expression, or political control. At some level, we must be able to exclude others from our associations, especially our intimate associations. Families wouldn't be families if the competent members couldn't exercise some control over membership. Moreover, family members as individuals would lack all manner of meaningful personal freedoms if they could not control at least their own membership. Traditionally, and in many families today, not all competent family members enjoy equal power to determine membership. Patriarchs have long controlled who is welcome within the family, for instance, casting out children who fail to meet some standard of virtue. Denying other competent family members equal say over membership has far-reaching implications. As much feminist literature confirms, to have even minimal control over their bodies and their lives, women need a right to exclude, where that includes the right to refuse a marriage proposal, the right to access contraception, the right to divorce, and indeed the right to choose not to spend private time with certain people.
I have to like the term cisgendered, but currently it is the appropriate.
No, ma'am. What you just described is political terminology, no matter how you slice it. Just like how I don't consent to being called a Negro, I don't consent to that political terminology either. Gender ideology is the result of white imperialist academia. It's a relatively European phenomenon that hasn't existed anywhere else. You aren't fighting white supremacy by engaging gender ideology. In fact, you're enforcing it. Telling women that our lived reality and our global experiences are something to be identified into is not only harmful, but inaccurate. Women are not emotional support creatures. We're not sources for affirmation. We don't exist to provide the world with comfort and safety. We're no one's eternal mothers.
The right to decide who to share a space with is integral to autonomy of one's own life, but also illustrates the importance of respecting the boundaries of others. Just as we have the right to decide who to spend time with or include in personal groups, so too do others. Relationships are mutual and cannot be forced. All that the forced inclusion of men and women's spaces has caused is an inability to campaign for solutions to sex-based oppression because the definition of woman has been made forcibly unclear in the eyes of the law. By forcing groups such as Australia's Lesbian Action Group to include males, the government encroaches on the right of association. It doesn't actually force lesbians to include trans-identified males. What it does is force groups to become quieter, prevents publicizing, and essentially sends groups back underground. That this echoes how many lesbian and gay meetings had to occur when homosexuality was legally persecuted is no mistake. This is simply another wave of homophobia and misogyny, as men argue that women do not have the right to meet alone without a male present. Even if men do force their way into these events, there's no forcing other attendees to make them feel welcome, be nice, or interact with them at all. And of course, there is no law saying that women must attend these events themselves. However, with affair, when women continue to opt out, deciding to change their clothes at home or in private than to share a space. When women hold only private events at their homes for friends instead of publicly open ones. When all the women in the locker room aren't really women after all, will they still want to come in? This, dear viewers, is where we part. I know that the plan for the tickle if you giggle thing was to bring it to the Supreme Court anyway, and I do hope that whoever's in charge up there is less stupid. But I have low faith in humanity now about levels of intelligence. But you know what? Even if they say, fine, you can't kick trans women out of your lesbian book club, they can't make me be nice to him. You can come, fine, whatever. I'll come in and say, Moid, what are you doing here? You're a man, and that's might be bullying to them, but you know what? It's not illegal. It's not illegal to just never talk to them, to avoid them, to exclude them, and they notice. I see plenty of posts on Reddit where I went to the lesbian orgy and no one talked to me. Yeah, because you weren't wanted there, and you can't take a hint. You can force yourself in all the way you want, and yes, it sucks ass, but women will just continue to fight and work around it. If that means, hey, I can't play as a sports team, I'll keep changing sports teams. If it means I can't change in peace at the gym, I'll wear my sweaty clothes home and change there. I think a lot of women are stubborn enough to protest in these small, quiet ways, while hopefully someone with sense fixes this in the later courts. Anyhow, if you guys have any comments, questions, or concerns, let me know in the comment section down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye!